Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 8:30 session. Today, we're going to hear from Carrie Suffern, a GIS analyst with Gannett Fleming. Just a few opening points for the conference today. We're going to have sessions from 8:30 until 1. And at the close of the day, we're going to give away door prizes. And you must be present on that call to win if your name's called. And you don't want to miss out because there are going to be some really great prizes. Be sure to check out the NCAUG merch page on the conference site. And all the proceeds from the sales are going to go to the scholarship fund. As a note, all the sessions are recorded and they're going to be on the NCAUG YouTube page after the conference. And it'll take a little bit to get everything loaded onto that site, but it'll be there. So to give you some background on Carrie, she's presenting today on traffic noise and construction noise, vibration dashboards, real-time monitoring and visualization. Carrie has 3 years of experience as a GIS analyst at Gannett Fleming and 10 years of experience using geospatial tools as a meteorologist. Her past experience includes using GIS to conduct noise and vibration studies for NCDOT, VDOT, PennDOT, and SCDOT. Additionally, Carrie utilized the graphical forecast editor created by NOAA, a GIS-based forecasting tool, as a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. She has a Master's of Geospatial Information and Technology degree from NC State and 2 BS degrees in meteorology and marine science, also from NC State. As she's presenting, we encourage you to enter any questions you may have into the chat box, and we will address those after she's finished. And for continuing education credit, please make sure that your name is correct on your Zoom login. Okay, at this point, we'll turn it over to Carrie, and she can take it away.
All right, thanks so much, Ben, for the intro, and I'm very excited to be here talking about some of the projects that we worked on in Gannett Fleming's Environmental Acoustics group. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in, and wanted to give a brief overview of how the presentation is going to flow today. And of course, since we're talking about noise, wanted to start out with the famous words of C-3PO. Did you hear that? And fun trivia, that was the first line of the very first Star Wars movie ever shown in theaters, Star Wars: A New Hope. And I love that quote because it really exemplifies how noise is such a major part of our lives and why environmental acoustics exists in the first place. Traffic noise, construction noise, vibration can be very, very detrimental if you're hearing that all the time. And that's why there are federal, state, municipal regulations on how loud traffic can be, how much noise somebody can be exposed to on a daily basis, and regulations for construction noise and vibration. So for a few projects that we have had over the last year, we've come up with some dashboards to help visualize the data that we've collected, visualize if there have been events that have exceeded certain thresholds. So what I want to do today is look at that data, how we measure noise and vibration, and how we display that data in dashboards. So we're going to go through 3 projects. We'll discuss each project's location, the data that we acquired for each project, the time frame, and I'm going to give a brief demo of each dashboard, and that's going to be within this PowerPoint. I didn't want to jump back and forth between my web browser and the PowerPoint. So I'm just going to show 1 or 2 things from each dashboard where you can filter data and how examples of the visualization of that. So noise. Gannett Fleming's Environmental Acoustics group works on a wide range of noise and vibration projects. These include, but are not limited to, traffic noise and construction noise and vibration measurements, and coming up with and identifying, this is the spatial component, identifying which communities will be impacted by this noise, traffic noise and construction noise. So as you all are very well aware, dashboards are a great way to ensure, to visualize this data. And when we're talking about noise and vibration, ensure compliance with federal state regulations. They also help to be an educational tool for these projects during them, after them, and before a project starts to identify potential noise and vibration events. So the 3 dashboards we're going to talk about is one that we did in conjunction with the Edmonton Police Department monitoring traffic noise. The second one was a job before construction started in the town of Northtown, Pennsylvania, and that is to the west of Philadelphia. And there's a lot of historic buildings there which are could be impacted negatively by construction vibration. And then the last one was a monitoring noise and vibration during at an active construction site during pile driving events on I-95, and that was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So how do we measure noise and vibration? So what we do is we go out into the field and we have a bunch of really cool equipment, and the first step is setting up noise meters. And in the left picture, you can see an example of one of those noise meters mounted on a tripod. And the thing that looks like a huge cell phone, almost a Trimble GPS, that is a noise meter. And then on the top of it is a microphone, which in this case is covered by a foam ball, which is a windscreen. So it helps protect the microphone from any wind noise, that sort of thing. And that's important because these microphones are very, very sensitive. And then that is fed, so you see the microphone connected to the meter in the first picture. In the second and third pictures, you see the microphone sticking out of a reinforced box, and that has all the meter equipment, the recording equipment within it. So after we get the measurement, we record it on our meters, we have to send it. And that's done through either connecting to an internet line, sending it through cell services, and in a few cases, we've used geophones. So once we have all that nice data, we've sent it along, how do we get it onto ArcGIS? And this is really project dependent. It depends on how we're getting the data. For the Edmonton project, we had a third-party vendor that compiled all the data for us, and they sent it to us in a text format. For the 2 construction projects, we had the data being sent to Gannett, Fleming in real time. Before we upload it and we pull it into Pro or upload it to ArcGIS, there are some smoothing of the data and calculations that we have to do. All that, those noise and vibration measurements are they're in an energy format, or they're energy. That's how we measure them. So we have to run them through some calculations to make them into an understandable format that we can visualize. So we do that on the back end, and that can be automated through Python scripts, and we've done that before. And then we also automate the process of, converting it from text or spreadsheet format into something that we can upload onto ArcGIS and then look at in a dashboard. And then, of course, all the filtering and relating of data is done on ArcGIS. The spatial component are the actual measurement sites, and then we have a whole bunch of data, just millions actually, of records of data that we then relate to each spatial location, and that's all done within the ArcGIS hosted environment. So the 3 dashboards again, Edmonton, Alberta was the first is the first project we're going to go through, and that worked to identify loud vehicles. They have a problem in Edmonton of a lot of souped up cars and road racing, and that really was and is a problem for some residential areas in Edmonton. So the police department wanted to try to get a handle on that and see if they can do anything to reduce that noise and potentially cite it. The second one is Northtown, Pennsylvania, where we work to come up with the current noise and vibration levels, or ambient noise and vibration levels, for a future construction project. And then in Philadelphia, construction monitoring of actual pile driving events. So for the Edmonton study, The goal was to identify traffic noise culprits or noise events, and the threshold that was determined was 95 decibels. So any event of 95 decibels or louder was determined to be a noise event. And 95 decibels, just to give you a good idea, that's like standing right next to a lawnmower with no earplugs, or it's very even louder. So, or having a semi truck just constantly going past you and you're staying at 60 miles per hour and you're standing right next to the highway. So it could be very disturbing if you're constantly hearing these noise events at 95 decibels or above. You're not going to be able to sleep. It's going to impact your life negatively. So the police department, again, wanted to try to get a handle on that, see if this is something that they could cite people for in the future. So each day, Environmental Acoustics got a review of the day's noise events, and what happened was we went through and we manually assigned each noise event, 95 decibels or greater, to one of these 13 categories. And the ones we were mostly concerned with were the non-emergency vehicle exceedances. So you can see we lumped those in there. We wanted to get a good picture of the percentages of emergency vehicles versus these other events. So the location of the measurements, we had 9 sites, and a few of the sites you'll see there's one on Jasper Avenue, Jasper Road, and that was moved to a different location. Then we had one trailer that was moved to 3 different locations. They all started in the center of the city, and then the trailer was moved to 2 different locations to the north of the city. And this happened last summer through mid-fall. We had continuous measurements through that time. So this is an example of some of the measurement sites, and you can see the microphones in the middle in the right-hand picture, and then the yellow Pelican case in the pictures on the left and right-hand side that has the noise meters. The trailer also houses the noise meters, and that was pulled around to different parts of the city. So the dashboard. So you have all that great data. We've linked it or related it to those 9 different sites, and we created a cool dashboard that the Edmonton Police Department could use to see where they're getting the most exceedances, what type of vehicles are causing that. And in addition, the data that we got had a video recording and an audio recording for each of those events. So this dashboard is driven by your left-hand filtering columns, where you can filter by date, location, and category. And then everything else on this dashboard changes based on those filters, including the number of events. And then you have your 2 pie charts. The one in the middle is your categories, those 13 categories. And on the right are your 9 sites. And then the boxes below that show averages, total averages that were calculated for each of the 9 sites. And based on your date filters, those are going to change, and they change colors. So below that average is going to show up blue, above it's going to show remain red. And then you can look at time series plots on the bottom right. So what I want to do now is show an example of filtering through to start with different dates. And we're going to pick the first 4 dates in June. And when we do that, you see that it filters out only the locations that had exceedance events during that time frame. And then it also filters out the number of categories. And you can see that the pie chart has changed based on that. So I'm going to go a step further, and we're going to only select the non-emergency vehicle sounds or events. When we do that, we get a bigger picture of what is causing the most episodes, and it looks like loud exhaust is the culprit. And then down here, hopefully y'all can see my cursor. You can see the top 10 exceedance events, or top 10 LA EQs, and that's the top 10 noise events. And this one right here was 104.4 decibels. And I want to show, give an example of what that sounds like. So I'm going to play this audio clip of what that event sounded like. Scroll. Okay. All right, so I think that's really neat. You can get these for all of the events within the entire measurement time period. I'm not going to show a video link because that shows people's license plates. So for privacy issues, I don't think that's a great idea. But the Edmonton Police Department, they can look at that and they can decide in the future how they want to proceed with this information. So let's move on to Northtown, Pennsylvania. So this is our second dashboard. And as a background, Norristown has quite a few historic sites, including the courthouse. There's a law firm that we measured out that was in a historic building. And historic buildings can be very sensitive to different vibration, especially construction that's very close by. So the goal of this study and consequently the dashboard was to really to demonstrate a proof of concept how this was going to be a good dashboard and situational awareness tool during construction, but it also helped to construct baselines for the ambient noise and vibration that each of these sites were experiencing. So sites were chosen both inside and outside of buildings, and we'll look at some examples on the next slide of where those were located, or next few slides. And then we placed all the results in a dashboard. So the location of each of these sites, there were 7 total sites that were measured over 2 different phases. The blue dots on here are the first phase, and then the green, the second. And then one of the law firm sites is purple, so that was a continuous measurement through those phases. And this is an example of what the setups look like. Again, you've got your microphones sticking on the top of your reinforced boxes. These are even stronger than a pelican case. You can anchor them to the ground so they don't get up legs and leave, or grow legs and leave in the middle of the night. And those were set up in those 7 different locations. So our dashboard, what we did was we ended up creating 2 different dashboards. So when you get noise and vibration data, what you end up seeing is a lot of non-ambient noise levels, like a closet door slamming or somebody honking a horn. And we're not really interested in that. We wanted to get a good baseline. So we filtered, and this was done before we even put anything on Pro or uploaded to AGOL. We filtered through that data, removed, despiked it, and then we calculated our averages. We converted energy to sound levels, all that fun stuff. But we decided to both visualize the smooth data and the raw data. And each of these dashboards, we're only going to look at the smooth for this presentation, but each of these dashboards look the exact same. And the goal of this was to be able to compare 2 different time periods and 2 different sites. So again, this dashboard is driven by your left-hand side, where you can filter dates and sites. And you can filter date and site for each of these. So if you scroll down on the left-hand side, there's another date and time selector below that. What I want to look at here is the closet location and the loading dock location for phase 1. And you can see that these are over the same time period. You can see that the averages for vibration and noise change. Obviously, the outside site is louder than the indoor, but it gives us a good idea on how we can visualize, or a good idea of ambient noise levels and vibration levels at these 2 locations. So not only is this a great proof of concept, you can add a sort of alert detector into these dashboards during construction, but this was also a good way to analyze the data, a really nice way to visualize it as opposed to just looking through spreadsheets of data. So our last one we're going to talk about is an I-95 construction project where they were doing different pile driving events. And this was an active construction site where we had the date and time of each of these pile driving events. So we were able to use that date time related to our measurements that we got. And this happened right as COVID was kicking up, February 2020 through mid-March of 2020. And here are the different sites. They're what's called piers, and they have I'm not a construction person, so try to explain as best as I understand, but there's different pile caps, and the H piles are those big steel beams that if you look at them from the side, they look like an H, and then micro pile caps are smaller. So obviously we're going to get louder noise and vibration from the H pile driving than the micro piles. So H piles are in the middle, and then you have your two micro pile sites on the southwest and northeast. And here's an example of the measurement locations. They look like the same set, or they're the same setup as what happened in Norristown. And I like the left-hand picture a lot in here. You can actually see some H piles that have been driven into the ground, and then you actually see some of those beams off to the side. So example of the active construction site where these were located. And these measurements were sent in real time through geophones, as were the Northtown. So Gannett Fleming was getting these measurements in real time. We did construct the dashboards after the measurement period, though. So the goal of these was also a proof of concept of how this can be useful during active construction, also used for an analysis tool of all the data that we got from each site. So these dashboards, on the left-hand side, you can select all of your pile driving events by peer location. And then you can compare two different sites by selecting your location 1, location 2 graphs. And when you make those selections, your location selections, the pile driving events for each location are filtered out. And then you see your location 1 and 2, and then vibration. So for your noise on the left and your vibration on the right underneath those time series graphs, that includes all of the pile driving events. And you can click through those, or you can filter them and get some more information on your LEQs, the highest LEQ that was observed and your maximum LEQ that was observed. The other dashboard, we created two for this. The other dashboard that we created was a sound, or not a time series, a graph of normalized noise levels by distance, because obviously the measurement sites were going to, the distance between each pile driving event was going to be different. So we needed to go through and normalize what the meter was picking up based on where the pile driving event occurred. So this was done in addition to analyzing the data in a spreadsheet format, and it was really useful to see in a dashboard with a dashboard's filtering capabilities, and you can really dynamically look at things very quickly as opposed to just scrolling through a spreadsheet. So this was very useful in reviewing the data after the project. So I want to show an example of one of the filters for this. So this is the first dashboard for I-95, and it shows two of the monitoring sites at Pier 24, and it shows from February. This covers about a 24-hour period in the time series, and so you see your noise values, or your noise graphs on the left, and on the right hand side of the time, those time series plots, are vibration. But what I think is really interesting, the top vibration time series graph, time series 1, shows a big spike that doesn't correlate to any of the pile driving events. And that's nice to see, because this is a great way to be able to de-spike your data and see what makes sense, basically. So shows another utilization of these dashboards, and the fact that you can analyze your data and QA/QC it very easily and quickly. And those spikes are the consistent spikes in each of the noise measurements, noise time series, and then this bottom vibration time series, you see those relate to individual pile driving events. And in addition, below the pile driving event selector shows a 9:45 event for each location 1 and location 2, and then that shows you on what do you call it? The filters below, not filters, but the boxes below where it has all the information for each event. It shows exactly your noise level for each one. So a more close-up view of this last dashboard, one of the things that you can add into these dashboards is to be able to zoom into and out of graphs. And that's nice to be able to do if you're concerned about, say, oh, I want to see what the sound level is about 300 feet from each measurement site. So you can do that. You can see where your averages are and your results for each of those peers. And then you can also select individual peers, and you can get a sense of how those noise levels changed with distance in each of those locations. So some thoughts during just putting these three dashboards together. It was neat to see that dashboards are not only really useful during the project, but also in review and then planning for your next project. Also, if you're working in, especially in environmental acoustics, when we're working on similar types of projects, it's going to be nice to have templates that you can go and just push data to for each different project. Definitely need to think about how we're going to get that data stream and how we're going to upload that into a hosted environment. And also, as we're thinking of potentially these being a project deliverable, really need to get feedback from customers on which parts of the dashboard they found the most useful, what they'd like to see, and what part of the project they're going to be the most useful. And then again, training materials for both internal use and for users of these dashboards is a great thing to think about, and that in the form of an ESRI story map would probably be very useful. So thank you guys so much for listening. These were fun projects to work on. One last thing, I want to kind of the big takeaway from working on these were that dashboards are not only useful in maintaining situational awareness during a project's active stage, but they were also and are very useful during reviews of a project, interrogating the data, and planning for future projects. So would love to talk to you guys more about any of these, and please check out Gannett Fleming Environmental Acoustics Group and let any of us know if you have any questions. So thank you all very much. Let me look, I think in the chat.
Thanks, Carrie, for the presentation. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat. But that was really neat how you could pull the audio back out of from that most intense one. So how long will the dashboard be active?
During the, what do you mean by active? They're currently, they're still active. You can just go in there and look at the data. But during the project is when they'll be in the active stage and getting data and displaying it. And then I think I saw one, these dashboards from AGOL, or these from, they're from AGOL. Yeah.
Great.
Hold on. Let's see, a few more. I think, do we have time? Cool projects. Are the dashboards updated in real time with scripting? This was a manual data process at this point. The definite goal is to automate it. And we have some Python scripts that go through the data and do all our backend calculations. And then we'd like to use those either through notebooks, AGOL notebooks, whatnot, to get that data onto dashboards. And then the last example. Yes, it was. It was just a filter for all the time series, so you can zoom in, zoom out of that. And
so the data was collected on those sensors that y'all had out in the boxes. Was it transmitted through some sort of network, or?
Yes, for the last two projects it was. It was transmitted through something called geophones. So Gannett Fleming was getting that in real time. We didn't make the dashboards until after the project, though.
Okay.
So yeah. And so these were like, hey, you know, we got this data, we have these scripts, we can do this in real time. But so it's kind of a proof of concept for that. as well as it was really helpful to analyzing the data. The first project for Edmonton, the Edmonton Police Department had that data and they had to give it to us. So.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're ready to wrap up. I think when we close, we'll have a survey to fill out before you leave. Is it all for us, Bailey?
That is it. So in just a moment, you will see the exit poll pop up on your screen. Please take a moment to just answer this very quickly. If you have anything else, we'll leave the room open for a few more seconds. Please enter any last minute questions into the chat. All right, well, it looks like there are no further questions. So thank you so much for a wonderful presentation and thank you for attending. You may now disconnect.
Good job, Carrie.
Thank you guys, that was fun.